Hello everyone, my name is Johnquixote and welcome to the Misadventures of a First-Time DM. Last left our adventurers, they had just killed Clark the bugbear, his pet wolf Ripper, as well as all the other goblins that were in this particular area, all except for like 5 that were in another cavern that they haven't visited yet. They don't know this, so shh. I mean, they know about it at this point, but narrative-wise, they don't know this yet. Shh. They also found the supplies they were looking for, as well as more. They found spare loot that Clark had been hoarding from his other escapades in the short time that they've been stationed there to have ambushes. They also found some supplies that looked like they belonged to definitively belonged to someone else, like they could potentially track down the owners because they had a stamp on them of a lion shield, a purple lion shield. And they slightly remember there being a place in town that had a similar emblem to the one displayed on these provisions. And they figured that, if we return these, we might get rewarded. We might get more money. Sounds like a good idea. Get all this stuff out of here. So at this point, they decide to take a short break. Before this, though, Allard goes to the cave entrance and recovers Douglas, because Douglas's player was able to make this session, so he's back and playing his character. However, we did lose the guy who was playing Waldo. I mean, not for good. He does come back later. It's just because of the way his work is, he is only able to make it like 50% of the time, if even that. But short of it, Douglas is back. Waldo is there, but playerless. So I take control of Waldo a little bit. Like I said, I don't really like to play the player characters because their intent behind them is not necessarily what I would necessarily do. But I believe in given the situations, I have a fairly decent idea of what Waldo would do in these situations. So I didn't mind playing him the little bit that I did. So Allard went and got Douglas. They come back. They set up for a short rest. Douglas and his wolf are taking watch. I had them roll perception to see if they noticed anything. Normally, wolves would have advantage on their perception checks that use their smell and sight. Or is it smell and hearing? I remember smell. Smell is a definite one. I can never remember what the second one is. It might be hearing. It's probably hearing. But given the bonfire that they were sitting next to, the wolf no longer has advantage because of the smoke and fire smells and sounds coming from the fire are just kind of messing with its senses a little bit. Not enough to cover it up completely, but just enough to, he just rolls regularly. He doesn't get advantage on the roll. So they both roll, neither one of them notice anything. At this point, Amble brings up the discussion of how are we going to get these supplies out of here? Because we found the supplies, we can get going, we can go back to Phandalin, deliver the supplies we're supposed to, and we're good to get paid. Unfortunately, Anvil kind of forgot the fact that they were also looking for a certain dwarf. And to be fair, the player just kind of forgot about that fact as well. So, when that happens, it's okay to remind them of what the character would know, because the character would definitely know this, even if the player forgot, because it's been several weeks since we first reintroduced that plot line. So it's very possible and plausible for a player to forget something where a character would not. So it's okay to remind them, oh no, you forgot about the fact that you were also supposed to, you might have forgotten, but your character wouldn't have forgotten the fact that you're also supposed to be looking for Gungeon Rock Seeker. That was part of the quest the NPC character gave you. And plus, the other players also remember this plot point as well, and they were like, no, we've got to find Gungeon Rock Seeker. That was part of the deal. So, remembering this information, Anvil then goes, oh, you know what? These wolves, they've seen everything that's come in and out. I mean, they were stationed pretty much right there at the entrance of the cave. Maybe they saw something. So he casts Talk with Animals, or Commune with Animals. I'm not sure which, because I'm not the best when it comes to spell names, which is funny because the two characters that three characters that I've played so far has been a sorcerer who doesn't like to use magic, a rogue who accidentally became a partial warlock, and a bard. Yeah, those are stories for a different time. But needless to say, I'm not on the up and up on all the spell names. But I mean, I'll get there eventually, especially as things progress and I start having to use more spells just because of the monsters and the enemies and the NPCs and all the other stuff that's going to be going on. So the spell names will start coming to me more correctly in the future as I continue on with this. But anyways, back on topic, back to the story at hand. Anvil talks to his wolf, and a wolf, being intelligent but not necessarily fluent in memory, had to roll to make sure he remembered, what happened a few days ago, because that's when Gundren and Sildar originally got attacked. The wolf passes its check and was able to recall that, in fact, a couple of days ago, a human and a dwarf were brought in by the goblins, both unconscious but not dead. And then later, the goblins took the dwarf. It doesn't remember what time or when this happened, but the goblins did take the dwarf out of the cave without the human. Once again, still alive. Definitely not dead, still alive. It also recalls the fact that earlier today, there were 3 dead bodies that were brought in. A bird, a lizard, and some other humanoid type thing. But they were definitely dead. They had the sin of death on them. So Anvil thanks his wolf and turns to the rest of the party and basically expunges what he just learned. That, Gundren Rockseeker is not here. There is another human here, but Gundren Rockseeker, the dwarf, he's not in the cave. He's already been taken out. Not taken out like, but taken out like let out of the cave. Very important to specify. Anvil also turns to Waldo and lets him know, listen, the wolf also says that, your friends, they're dead. Waldo doesn't believe him. I mean, there's a chance that the dwarf might be telling him the truth, but why should I believe him? They've given me no reason to trust them. In fact, when we first met, they assaulted me. Why should I believe them? No, I'm not going to believe you. I want to see this with my own eyes. So, once the short rest is over, they continue on further into the cave to the only place they haven't been yet, across the bridge. They cross the bridge, no issue whatsoever. Yeah, it's shoddy goblin, bridge, but as long as you're not like jumping up and down on it, it's fine. It should be able to hold the weight quite easily enough. So they cross the bridge, go around the bend, and they come to the final cavern. Now, originally, this was supposed to be an encounter where they fight 5 goblins. However, they find no goblins in here. And the reason why being, well, they had absolutely no issue fighting Clarg, his pet wolf, and 2 goblins. Granted, those were only 4 monsters, but it's only 1 less than the number of goblins that would have been in this cave. And I could just find no justification for having them fight 5 goblins, which would be absolutely no benefit to them, no challenge to them. That's the most important one. This would not have been a challenge at all for them, and it would just have wasted time. Now, the only way I would have had this happen was if they decided to nix the short rest. If they had decided to just continue on and push forward without having a short rest, I would have still had the goblins there because there would have been no reason for them not to be there. But that's why when they had the short rest, Douglas had to make the perception checks, because unbeknownst to him and the rest of them, a goblin was on its way to talk to Clark to get its orders, what am I supposed to do kind of thing, when it comes across the bodies of his dead goblins. So it's a little bit cautious. It's hiding at this point because it doesn't know what killed these goblins, and it certainly doesn't want anything that killed these goblins to kill it. So peeking around the corner, it notices a human, another human, a dwarf, and a Goliath. Not only does it notice these things and them very, well, living, it also notices 3 wolves that are hanging out with them. Not only that, it notices that a certain bugbear is no longer living. So, being a goblin, and goblins are not necessarily smart, but I think it's smart enough to know that, hey, this thing killed Clarg. Clarg's pretty tough. If we fight these guys, we're probably going to end up like Clarg. So, it goes back, it tells all the other goblins that, hey, Clarg is dead. And if we stay here, we're probably going to be dead too. So what was originally supposed to be an encounter with 5 goblins ends up being an encounter with, well, the dirt, because there's nothing there. Aside from a couple of oxen that are pinned to the wall because I made a mistake earlier a couple of sessions ago. See, when the players first made it to the clearing where the cave entrance and everything is, there were supposed to be 2 oxen chained to the wall outside in the clearing. But guess who forgot that he was going to do that? Yeah. So to try to kind of fix my mistake, no, the goblins instead, they brought the oxen inside, chained them up into the wall in this cavern in here. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So they see the oxen and they notice that the chain has been kind of pulled, like the goblins tried to get the chain out, but in their rush were unable to do so, so they just left the oxen behind. They also left quite a bit of supplies behind, but besides what they probably would have considered essentials, or basically the stuff they wanted. However, Anvil, being the only one with dark vision, also notices a mass in the distance. Going forward to check to see what the mass is, he finds it to be a human, the human that the wolves were talking about. Everyone else comes forward as well, and they bring the human back to consciousness. It turns out it's Sildar Hallwinter. Sildar basically confirms everything that the wolves had just told them, especially to Waldo, the fact that I'm sorry to inform you, but your friends are dead. Having previous interactions with Sildar and having no reason to doubt the words he said, Waldo begrudgingly accepts this fact. His friends are dead. And he doesn't know what to do at this point. So, and I don't know what to do with him at this point. He just accepts the fact that, okay, my friends are dead. That will be something for the player to decide when he manages to make it back. Sildar asks if it would be alright for him to accompany them back to Phandalin, since that's where they're headed, and he still has business there, even though Gundren's not there. He would like to eventually find Gundren, but he has more pressing issues in Phandalin than that. So he still needs to make his way to Phandalin. They allow him. They go back there. They're still trying to figure out what is the best way to get these supplies back to the cart so they can get the cart back to Phandalin. Now, this is something that I find absolutely amazing because I do the same thing when I'm a player, trying to find shortcuts in time in the world of the game, even though it takes longer to do so in our actual world. Like, for instance, if they were just to say, all right, we're going to take whatever time is needed and just carry everything to the cart manually, several hours in game will have passed. But it'll happen like that in the real world. It'll be like, okay, several hours have passed. Y'all managed to get everything to the carts, and just as quickly as that, move along. But we try to find ways to save time in the game world, even though it takes longer to do so in our time. Because we will discuss things for 15-20 minutes trying to figure out how to save an hour and a half or multiple hours or multiple days in the fictional world. So we take more time to figure out how to do things more exponentially in the game world, which, yeah, like I said, I even do it myself. So, and I think part of it is the act of buying into the reality of this game, of this world, as being its own separate thing. It's not just, hey, we're playing a game. It's no, we are living the lives of these adventurers. What would these adventurers do? They would try to figure out the best way of doing this to save time. So they make discussions, and as they're crossing the bridge, they kind of made the realization that, hey, we could take this bridge down, we could fix it to the oxen, and we could have the oxen haul the supplies from the cave to the cart. Now we just have to figure out how to get the supplies to the makeshift sled, because they didn't want to risk taking or loading up the sled in the cave and then having to haul it out that way, where it could possibly fall into the water and all that stuff. They wanted to find the best route to get from the cave to the sled outside the cave to the cart. This is also when they remember the chimney chute that was in Clark's cavern that led to the wolf pen. Alright, we could actually do something to try to lower these supplies down to the wolf pen area and then be able to haul things from there back out. So they figured out, okay, we'll take whatever bedding we can find. We are going to put it at the bottom of the chute. We're going to attach everything to ropes and lower it down and kind of have like a conveyor chain of dropping supplies down, lowering the supplies down, having another person load them up to the cart, and basically go that way, which saved them significant amount of time in the game world. Once again, this took quite a few minutes for them to put together how they wanted to go about this. So once they had it all decided, it was like, yep, that's easy enough. Y'all are able to manage to do that. Y'all saved quite a few hours in loading up the sled, taking the sled, walking it through back to the cart to the wagon, and y'all are able to, in a couple loads, be able to get the wagon or the cart fully loaded back up and hitch the oxen back up as well, and to carry the cart. So problem solved, they begin to make their way back to Phandalin. Now during this time, because it would take them quite a while to get from where they're at back to Phandalin, they gain the benefit of, I decided they gain the benefit of a long rest, because they're not going to encounter anything on the way back. We're going to try to get this adventure beat concluded so they can begin on the next one. And now that they've also successfully cleared out Cragmaw Cave, they have been promoted to level 2. Now the way the campaign works, the way the campaign module works is that in the first section, it's like it's broken up into 4 sections, 4 story beats on how the players are supposed to technically, potentially end up going through the campaign. In the first section, basically, you don't award any experience for the entirety of the Cragmaw Cave. But what you do is, once they've cleared out the Cragmaw Cave, they get promoted automatically to level 2. Then in the next section, they start telling you, okay, this is how much to award the players for these encounters. And then they follow up in the 3rd section and 4th section is, okay, we're no longer telling you how much you're supposed to reward. Each enemy they potentially will fight already tells you how much experience to give per creature. So do the math, figure out how much experience you're supposed to reward, and then do that. Basically, it's a drawn out way of teaching you how the XP system works. First don't worry about the XP, just worry about trying to run the game. We'll teach you the other stuff later. Okay, now that you've got a handle on running the game, this is how experience works. They're level 2, now we're going to teach you how to do experience. And then once they finish with that, they're like, okay, now that you understand how experience works, figure it out on your own. That's the simplest way to put it, but I honestly have to say, I kind of like the way they do that, because it does let you focus on the more important aspects of role-playing as a DM first. But anyways, they make it back to the town after with the benefits of a long rest, and they make their way to Barthen's provisions so that they can deliver the supplies and deliver the news that they were unable to retrieve Gundren, as well as stock up on whatever supplies they might need at this point. They let Barthen know, and Barthen is upset about the fact that they were unable to find Gundren, and that his 2 brothers that should be arriving back in town any day to recover the supplies are going to be very upset to hear that something had happened to their brother. Little do they know that I'm actually going to nix that part because Robert doesn't know that yet, and I know he watches these. So, but Barthen thanks him for completing his task and pays them, even though they were unable to recover Gundren. He still pays them and everything because it was all mostly just find out what happened, recover them if you can. If not, at least we know what happened to them, kind of situation. So he pays them. They supply up. They ask him about the lion shield, the purple lion shield mark on the other supplies, and how much he figures the other supplies are worth. He gives his honest appraisal of how much the supplies are worth, and tells them that that's the mark of the lion shield coster, ran by another person. I forgot what her name is, and I don't have the book on me right now to look it up. So right now her name is that other person. I'll look it up for the next time. I'm sorry. So they begin heading further into the town, where the town square is, because that's where the lion shield coster is. They meet up with that person who runs the lion shield coster, and she thanks them profusely for bringing back the supplies. They've also noticed a few things. They've noticed that that there is a shrine in the town square that has been kind of defaced a little bit. Not so much that it's been neglected, but in the fact that it seems like it's being abused, like graffiti and everything. They notice a couple other things here and there that just seem to be a little bit off with the town, but she thanks them profusely for bringing back her supplies, and she rewards them pretty well for their efforts in bringing her back what is her company's business items. Douglas then asks what's going on with the town. We've noticed a couple things off, and that's when she mentions, there've been the Red Band ruffians that have infiltrated the town recently within the last couple of months, and kind of making things rough for everyone in the area. But that's where we called it for the night, because it was getting kind of late at that point. And even though it doesn't sound like much was really done, a lot more ground was actually covered than it sounds like, mainly because of the fact that there was a lot more player discussion going on. And unfortunately, because of when I'm recording, technically re-recording this one, I have forgotten quite a bit of the dialogue. So I unfortunately cannot espouse on that a little bit further. But on the plus side, I am getting a lot further caught up. So the whole memory issue shouldn't be a problem in the future. So yeah. So next week we'll be going further more into the things that happened in the town of Phandalin, what the adventurers plan to do, what they're planning on not doing, as well as a sudden hiccup in their plan of doing something that ended up causing them to do the thing that they weren't planning on doing in the first place. If it sounds confusing, it kind of is, because the players end up doing what they think is just kind of a side quest without realizing that it was actually part of the main quest all along. So tell me what you think down in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my decision on how I handled the whole goblin situation back in the Cragmaw Cave, on the fact that they didn't even encounter the 5 goblins that were supposed to have been there in the first place. Let me know what you thought about that whole situation, if I made the right call or if I should have had them fight them anyways. Even though, like I said, I feel like there would be no challenge in it for them. But yeah, let me know. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!